I could not calm down. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't calm down. I couldn't stop the loud voices telling me to jump. You must jump. What the hell was going on? Why did these voices feel like a real, breathing, physical entity? After all, this was all going on in my head, yet it felt like I was being hijacked in my own body. This was supposed to be a fun night. After being a fan for years, I was finally going to see one of my favorite bands, Fall Out Boy. Not only would this be my first time seeing them live, but this would be my first concert experience ever, and it was all thanks to my sister. But as we stood on the balcony watching one of our favorite bands, I couldn't fight the urge to want to jump and end my life. This wouldn't be the first or last time I would experience such thoughts. Months prior to the concert, I started having these random, really intense thoughts. It scared the life out of me. Why am I having these insane thoughts? As someone who grew up Christian, I immediately assumed one of two things. Number one, this had to be the devil causing all of this. Or number two, I must be a really bad person. I must be a terrible sinner. Only sinners would think these weird, awful things. To make matters worse, the thoughts initially were these blasphemous things about God. Cursing at God, believing I belonged in hell. During the time, I was very much into organized religion. So just the mere idea that I could think about God in a negative light made me feel terrible. I was filled with crippling guilt. Did God know I was having such thoughts? Would he strike me down? Ran through my mind constantly to the point that it was hard to think clearly. As time went on, these thoughts would morph, shape, and get increasingly more intense. After moving back to Pontiac, Michigan, I got a job at Great Lake Mall. This was like my first job ever. And I was pretty happy. I was finally out in the real world and away from the isolated, cult-like existence that was my previous life. This was it. I was finally going to have my moment of happiness and a sense of a normal life. Of course, time would prove that nothing could be further from the truth. When I first got my job, the constant voices in my head had stopped. I was convinced that whatever demon had hijacked my mind had been vanquished. My prayers had been answered, I thought. One day after work, I took the bus home as I always did. I had my Sony Walkman, staring out the window, which is still one of my favorite pastimes, and I got lost in my own little world. I sat in the back of the bus, and there was a gentleman sitting 2 seats in front of me. Suddenly, out of absolutely nowhere, I had the violent urge to stab this man to death. What in the actual fuck? I thought to myself. I'm a very chilled and non-violent person. I don't even like killing ants because I have so much respect for them. So I didn't understand why would I want to harm someone. It made no sense. I was trying so hard to look normal, but on the inside I was freaking out. It got even worse when I got off the bus and I had an urge to walk into incoming traffic. This cycle of violent thoughts that were either about self-harm or harming others would continue and be persistent for months. I was a prisoner of my own mind. I was scared of my own thoughts. My depression spiked as a result. I didn't know what to do. I went to a doctor for a separate health issue, but I remember he asked me if I was depressed and suicidal, and I replied yes to both. He wanted to put me on antidepressants, but I declined as I already felt I was losing control and was paranoid at the idea that antidepressants would only make matters worse. Most days felt like an endless battle between myself and myself. So when my little sister won 2 tickets to see Fall Out Boy, I felt a sense of happiness and relief from the inner darkness of my own psyche. That day started off so awesome. Me and my sister both worked at the mall during that time, and her gym class heroes would be there for meet and greet / signing. And they were also going to give away tickets for their show that night with Fall Out Boy. This was during the peak of third wave emo. You could not escape studded belts, I owned several, and swoopy hair. I almost gave myself a perm, thank God I didn't do that. I was all about emo. I mean, obviously I still am. And I could not believe one of my favorite bands would be at the mall that I worked at. I wouldn't let this rare opportunity slip by. I knew I had to bring my guitar, which I used to carry around everywhere, despite not knowing how to play. Yes, you could say I was a bit of a poser. My sister and I waited in a line that seemed to last forever. But this was one of the biggest bands in the scene, and this was also Michigan where nothing cool ever happens, so the long line made sense. Finally, it was our turn to meet the band. I nearly froze when I found myself face to face with Travie McCoy. This was the man who I wanted to be like so freaking badly. And there he was, tall as hell, next to little old me. I nearly died right there. But I must say, he and the band were so nice, and they all signed my cheap little guitar that I brought from Target. Don't judge me. Okay, you can judge me a little. Like everyone else, me and my sister grabbed our raffle tickets, hoping to score free tickets for the show that night. But we knew we wouldn't win. We never win anything, and we were convinced that winning things is only for normal people with stable home environments, not weirdos whose families talked about the end of the world and read about the book of Revelations almost on a weekly basis. You can imagine my surprise when my sister's raffle number got called. Was this a mistake? I thought. We were both dumbfounded. Me more so just because I've always been more of a skeptic than my sister. Once the initial shock wore off and we realized we were going to be seeing gym class heroes, plain white tees, cute as what we aimed for, and Fall Out Boy, we were beyond stoked. This was a hell of a way to start off my concert journey. Surely nothing could go wrong. Right? Right? When we got home, my sister and I were still so hyped for what would be an awesome night. Of course, we needed to muster up the courage to tell our overly religious mother about the show. Once we passed that hurdle, it was time to find an outfit. We didn't have a car, so we called a cab. Yes, we called a cab. There were no Ubers at that time. Uber did not exist. Anyway, I remember my little brother being bummed that he couldn't come with us. Jake, if you see this somehow, I'm still sorry about that. Once we pulled up to the venue, we were surrounded by fellow emos, people wearing hella wristbands, jeans so tight you wonder how anyone could breathe, and eyeliner upon more eyeliner. It was heaven, okay? It felt like heaven. We had nosebleed seats, but I didn't care. I was just so excited to be there. Once the show kicked off, that's when the monster that's been living in my head decided to throw me a surprise party. Bizarre and random thoughts flooded my mind. You're gonna die at this concert, played on repeat in my head, like an endless loop. I then just kept getting the urge to jump off the balcony. Panic began to take over me as I felt like I couldn't control my own body or my own mind. I remember my sister had to calm me down. My mind was racing at lightning speed. I enjoyed as much of the concert as I could. I was just upset that it felt like my own mind robbed me of truly enjoying my very first concert experience. It wouldn't be until years later that I would realize that I suffer from obsessive intrusive thoughts. These are the kind of thoughts that just seemingly come out of the blue. The thoughts are unwanted, involuntary, and can feel incredibly real. Virtually everyone experiences intrusive thoughts from time to time, but some people, such as myself, experience these thoughts at a far higher level, intensity, and frequency. I wish I could tell you these thoughts have stopped, that they have ceased to exist, but that is not the case. The thoughts I was experiencing didn't change, but my relationship with those thoughts did change. In the past, I automatically assumed these twisted and dark thoughts were a reflection of myself, as if they were me and I them. I now realize I am not my thoughts. In other words, you can experience almost anything in your head, but that doesn't mean that is who you are as a person. We all experience or even sometimes think of really insane shit. Anyone telling you that they don't is probably lying to you. But, and again, I want to emphasize, that does not make you a bad person. I want to say again, you are not your thoughts. You are not defined by your thoughts. You are defined by your actions and your values. Look, I still wake up every day dealing with this monster. Only now I have made peace with it. I can move on and enjoy my life despite my struggles with my mental health. It doesn't mean every day is rainbows and sunshine, but it does mean I can confidently and courageously carry on.